2010 Interpretations of Accounts, Hebe plc. First thing we're asked to get here is the interest cover. So my formula for interest cover is my net profit before interest divided by interest equals times. My net profit, 65,000. Before interest means I add back the 30,000 interest, divide by interest again, and it works out at 3.17 times. My cash purchases, well, I'm told to find cash purchases if the period of credit received from trade creditors is 2 months. My period of credit received from creditors is going to be this formula here. So I know the answer to that is going to be equal to 2 months. So if I put everything in, I have my creditors at 77,000 seen here, multiplying by 12 over 1 because my answer is in months, and it's equal to 2. I can then find my missing figure, which is going to be my credit purchases, as I do not have that figure. My credit purchases works out at 462,000. I have credit purchases, and I need to find cash purchases. Therefore, if I can have my total purchases, take away my credit purchases, all I'll be left with is cash purchases. So, how do I find total purchases? Because I'm not given it here. Well, this is just a guide. You don't have to do it. This is the trading profit and loss. This is the purchases figure that I don't have, but I know that opening stock plus purchases less closing stock equals 725,000. Therefore, if I put that into a formula, I'll work out purchases to be 730,000. I have my total purchases. I have my credit purchases up here, 462. Therefore, my cash purchases is the difference. It's 268,000. The third thing we're asked to get is the ordinary dividend cover. For my ordinary dividend cover, I have my dividend cover formula: net profit minus preference dividend divided by total dividend minus preference dividend. So we must find out preference dividend first. My preference dividend is going to be my preference shares of 50,000 multiplied by 10%, which works out at 5,000. My net profit is given at 65,000, and my total dividend is given at 50,000 here, dividends paid. So if I plug all those in, I get my answer. It's 1.33 times. Now, the fourth one. I'm asked to get the market price if my PE ratio is 10. The market price here is usually given at the bottom of a question. I'm just going to jump to a different question here. And we can always see the market value of one ordinary share is so on and so forth, 90 cents here. So for the 2010 question, you weren't actually given that information. You have to work out what the market price is. There's no set formula like these ones here where I can say a market price is equal to this divided by this. But if I manipulate another formula, I should be able to find it. And they always tell you what formula you can use to find it, because they're telling you the PE ratio is equal to 10. So if we look at the PE ratio, we can see that this is just stating what I've just said there. We don't know what market price is. We have no set formula to find it, but we're told what the PE ratio is, and that if we look at this formula, we can fill in everything else and therefore find market price. My PE ratio is share price, which is my market price. It's the same thing. Market price, share price, the same thing. So I don't have this. Divided by my earnings per share is equal to years. Well, I'm told my formula is going to be equal to 10, which is in years for the PE ratio. So I know my answer is going to be 10 years. I don't have my earnings per share, but I can work that out, and then I'll have the two of these, and the difference will be equal to my share price, market price. So I have to work out my earnings per share first. My earnings per share formula is given here. It is my net profit minus preference dividend divided by my number of ordinary shares. Net profit is given in the question at 65,000. I've worked out my preference dividends to be 5,000, and my number of ordinary shares is given in the question at 400,000. Plug in all those and I get my earnings per share to work out at 15 cents. If I go back to this formula now, I know that my share price divided by my earnings per share is my PE ratio in years. I don't know share price, and my earnings per share is 15, and I know my answer to my PE ratio is 10 years, as this was given here, 10. So a share price is therefore equal to 10 years multiplied by 15. Share price is equal to 150, and my share price is always in cent. It's 150 cent. Cent has to be there. 150 cent. Otherwise you're going to throw away a lot of marks if you don't show the units for every answer. So it's 150 cent. Quickly, how I worked it out is more or less you have to pay attention to what they tell you. They tell you the P ratio is 10. Once you know the P ratio, you can work out what the earnings per share is. You'll have everything. You'll get the answer will be the share price, the market share price, 150 cent. Last thing we're asked to get is dividend yield. Again, we've done this many times. Formula is dividend per share divided by share price. Dividend per share is different to earnings per share. So I have to work this out. The formula, total dividend minus preference dividend divided by number of ordinary shares. My total dividend is my dividends paid, 50,000, minus my preference dividend. I've already used that twice now at 5,000. My number of ordinary shares, 400,000. My dividend per share, my DPS, works out at 11.25 cent. If I put that into my dividend yield formula, which is dividend per share divided by share price, I have 11.25 divided by my share price, which isn't given here as I just worked it out. It's my market price of 150 cent. So 11.25 divided by 150 cent multiplied by 100 over 1 is equal to 7.5%. Unit has to be there. So this is based on you getting your share price as well from the previous question of 150.